Welcome to the Livecast Conversations with. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Peeled Back, speaker and coactive coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of the Livecast Conversations with, where we have a unique opportunity to get up and close and personal with our host. That's me, Gene. I'm not only a seasoned podcast host, but now I'm a newly certified professional coactive coach. Today's episode is an AMA, Ask Me Anything, where I will take live questions from our listeners and share my insights on everything from personal growth and development to the art of getting started on a passion, like something like the Livecast or a podcast. With over 100 episodes, I've interviewed countless thought leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs, and have a knack for getting to the heart of what makes them tick. Now, I'm taking this as an opportunity to step in and actually answer some questions so that I can maybe share a little bit and be on the receiving end and see what that's like for a change. So I guess here we go. So my name's Gene, as I said earlier. I'm the host. Down below you'll see that. This is my show. Well, let's talk a little bit about why I got started with the Livecast Conversations with. There's a couple reasons, really. As an entrepreneur, I've had a lot of conversations with other leaders and business owners. When you ask somebody, like, how's things going? They go, good. And maybe behind the scenes, it's not so good. And there was a lot of conversations pre-pandemic and even now about, like, entrepreneurship is a great thing to get into. It's like a yes and. There's a lot of fun that can be had with it. But being an entrepreneur is like choosing to stand up every morning and get punched in the face. Because this shit's hard. It is not for the faint of heart. And there's a lot that you have to go through and do. So really the core of the show was to get people on that were willing to share some of the bumps along their way so that we could show others and leave those as like billboards and clues for them to find their way through it, to know that they're not really alone in whatever's going on in their life. So that was the main core. I'd never done anything like this before. I'd sat on wondering, could I do this? Should I do this? What would happen if I get on the air and no one's there? Just like now, there's no one here. It's just me. And that was okay. I actually had a good friend, Jeff Moody, who's been on the episodes before. He was starting to do live cast for his book that was launching. And he said, well, why don't you just go live and bring a guest on and just see what happens? So that's exactly what we did. Over 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 at this point now, I one day messaged my friend Tom Broxham and I said, Tom, do you want to be on my show? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, great, what are you doing right now? We jumped on Zoom. It was unpolished, but it was just two friends having a conversation, trying to find out what Tom was doing, be an opportunity to share a little bit more about what he was up to, and just be interested in him. Now, this is episode 107 when this goes out, now that this is going out. A lot happened along the way. I was able to step back from thinking about how am I going to be judged on this show and just get started. And one of the things that I use to help alleviate the judgment saboteur of mine was committing to doing one little thing different on every show. And that's exactly what I did. Over the course of that time of being on the show, who just gave me a thumbs up? Ryan Lancaster, you're a good man. How are you, brother? Definitely jump down on those questions if you got any. Where was I? Yes, thanks, Ryan. But it was to be able to separate myself from judgment as a stopping point to going, what would happen if I get started and improve just a little bit every single show? So I did that. And I started reaching out to some of my mastermind groups, some of my close friends, and people that I recently connected with on LinkedIn going, hey, this is what I'm doing. I really want to talk about the power of entrepreneurship, but as well the dark side of it and how we get through that to learn the journey and how that empowers our journey. I didn't really have the words for it back then. So I created a Calendly. That was my first step. Like I'll just send this out and I'll let people sign up. Well, little did I know I'd never used Calendly before. And I thought I'd set it up for once a week, but no, I'd set it up for, I think there was like at one point I was doing 3 shows a week because I messed up the Calendly and just allowed people to fill up my calendar. That lesson got learned really fast because that was a lot of shows. It was on the surface, I'm like, that was a bit of a mistake. I learned a lot, and those first 10 shows accelerated my growth because now I was doing one little thing multiple times a week because that was my commitment. We started on Zoom. Zoom was a horrible platform for doing this. By episode 5, I'd found StreamYard because I was looking for something that would allow me to bring my guests in, maybe have a background like you can see here in the outside frame. And what else could I do? Well, StreamYard actually allowed me to do a lot of interesting things, which added on to the capability, I guess the capacity of what one little thing I could do. Before you know it, I had my Calendly connected well to my calendar properly. We synced up on Wednesdays as being the primary air date for my guests. And then was booked out for like the first 25 shows. It's pretty wild. Behind the scenes, I was doing a lot of little things. Like every week, the emails would change a little bit, or the way that I would set up the calendar would change a little bit. My intro would change just a little bit. If you go back and look through, if you're here on YouTube, you're going to be able to see the progression of just the spot, like the, I guess the guest backgrounds and the guest social shares as they have evolved. I would use Canva to make an intro. Then I would make the little lower thirds, like something like for my guest that's just coming up. Lower thirds. I can bring on, bring out. I could change the format of my guests, how many guests I could have on. And when I allowed myself just to make the little changes, I was able to move forward because I knew where I wanted to go. Once I got past like that first 10, like, could I get to 50? Then could I get to 100? What would I do if I got to 100? And how would that actually evolve me in my life? For me, it was standing up and doing something because I was a great starter. I started a lot of things. Finishing them, that wasn't really the thing that I had focused on so much. Great starter. But with the live cast, I'd made a promise to get to 100 to myself. And to do that without monetizing it, without worrying about it, how's it going to fit into the business, just getting it on there just to get started and to figure out how do I learn to get through and get beyond just starting things. What would that unlock for me? Who would I get to have conversations with because of it? Now, I've got episode 108 in the can. It's scheduled for next week. Corey Oman Brown is going to be my guest. She's an incredible entrepreneur that's ran Navy and Sage. I've had incredible people that have been on my show, like Ryan Lancaster, who's given me the likes on Facebook here today. I think what made it easier was knowing I was going to get to 100. Putting that commitment out there to other people. And trust me, when I got to like 95, there was like, you can just quit. You don't, it really, like those last few ones, I had to fight through. Because my habit was like getting to 80%. Maybe pushing it to 90 and being like, good enough. It wasn't going to be good enough. It was a matter of trying to get through and get to anything. And as well, if you're watching, this is an AMA. You can send those comments in through Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'll see them, and I'll be able to answer them. Well, one question that I actually had, and why I did this show, is actually because my friend Drew Vincent. A little while ago, we were out and we were talking and having what I thought was a good conversation. Drew kind of stops and goes, "Dude, it's brutal to talk to you actually, because you ask all the questions. I don't know really a whole lot about you." When I asked him about sharing that and why this has become a bit of a place for me to now show up, he wrote, "Yeah, you're shit to talk to because you ask all the questions in the it's the whole be interested and not interesting thing at networking. You've nailed that." Boom, yes, for me. But it was the day I realized I didn't know your kids' names or even the quantity you had. Hell, I didn't even know you had an ex-wife for the first few years. I think it may speak to me being, but his question really comes down to, um, so his question was, how do you find the balance between being caring and curious about others and sharing? I don't know that answer yet. I think that's a work in progress, Drew, is what is the balance between caring about others to be interested in what they're doing and being allowing them to be interested in you as well. I think that even that word there, that allowing, is like maybe there was in the past where it was safer for me to ask the questions because I wanted to fit in. So if no one knew who I was, and if I didn't have to divulge too much, I could continue to be that interesting conversationalist, which powers my interviews. But some of my closest friends are now reflecting, going, I don't know if I know a whole lot about you. And maybe that wasn't really fair of me to do to them. But as a place that I've had to grow to get comfortable revealing more, I think there's a, when I think about Drew's question, it's like, well, what is transparency, vulnerability, play in these type of conversations that you want to have with people that are close with you when they ask you a question and not just going, I'm good. And when they say, how are you? You can ask, do you want the real full answer? Do we want to get into the depth of this question? Because maybe they really do. They don't want to be like, you were supposed to say fine and we were supposed to go on. They want to know you as the person. And I think part of that balance is being aware that people do want to be interested in you. And feeling that uncomfortableness and giving a little bit of yourself into that moment. Yeah, I think that's kind of how that question's hitting with me right now, is like, give yourself into that moment. Let it be so that you can do what you need to, which is in service of those friendships, which is maybe in service of clients, maybe in service of your relationship with your significant other. Is like, how do you open up the doors to all those things? It's like, well, you got to kind of go first. You got to be willing to say, hey, however you need to, how deep do we want to go with this question? Do you want to know more about me? Yeah, I think, Drew, that's kind of how I'm learning to balance it, is like to feel the uncomfortableness and to step into it anyways. Thanks, brother. I really appreciate that you have shared that with me over the last little while. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to keep on going since I'm not seeing any questions, so I'll ask some of my own. So what do I do and how do I help people? Well, I'm a life coach and I work with people that are basically those who I interview. Those who have done a lot of great work over the first chapter of their life and their career. They're ambitious, they're hardworking, they're achievers. And they've gotten to maybe a goal in their life they thought they had set, but it probably wasn't all that clear, like starting a business, running a business. It's a goal, but it's not a very clear one. So they get there. And now they're there, still applying the same energies and the same tactics and the same steps. They're starting to feel tired, starting to probably question, going, what am I doing all this for? Why am I doing this? Am I getting burnt out? Why doesn't anyone work as hard as I am? Why do I feel like I gotta do it all? Those people are the ones I help with. Because that's what I call being in the fog. Is like you're basically running around like a Tasmanian devil, can't see where you're truly going or knowing where your next big goal is, big clear goal, and you're deploying all this energy and all these tactics in the same way that got you to where you are right now, unknowing that that's not what gets you to the next level. Having the hammer down at 110%, 200%, wherever that lands for you, it's not sustainable. So when you're in the fog, you got to stop actually and look around and take account for your surroundings. Because I find when we're in that state of really not knowing where we're going to be going or how we're going to get there, but yet just deploying all this energy and not letting up, you can't see what you're running into. So you're going to be knocking other things over in your life, making a mess everywhere you go. Hell, you may even take yourself off a real bad course. If you're driving in the fog, you're not going slow, and you're not driving for the road conditions, nor knowing where you're going to be going, you could easily end up off the road in a big wreck. So I'd want to try to help people slow that down, find the lines in the road again, and remember where they're going. I think there's a component of that clarity here that is important. I talk about finding your North Star and why that's important, and really defining, clarifying that North Star so that you know where you're going and you can feel and you can get connected with what you feel around that. Is this something that you're excited about? Is this something that makes you happy? Is this something that you're like, oh, even on my bad days, I'm going to do this and it's going to be meaningful? It's one thing to set up your metrics and say, here's my outcome. But how do you want to be on that road to there? That's kind of where we help people with Peel Back. It's like, how do you want to be on that journey? Because that's just as important. You don't want to be in the fog because that's wasted energy. But you want to be knowing you're doing the right things at the right time for the important reasons. We kind of help you get set up with that around setting your strategy, figuring out your execution on a quarterly basis, and the tactics that you're going to take on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. That's the set part. And the it is your intentions and your techniques. The intentions and the techniques are just as important. Your intentions kind of imbue the who do you want to be on that journey. And the techniques, similar to how I started this, talking about the live cast, it's like, well, what are you going to do to find your 1% improvement daily? How are you going to say, this is where I'm going. Here's how I'm going to measure that I'm going there. Here's how I'm going to be while I'm on that journey. Here's how I'm going to face the good things and the bad things. And behind that is a set of techniques that you're going to do. Maybe it's you're going to email clients every day. So how are you going to improve upon that? Maybe it's you're going to get on podcasts like mine. How are you going to do that? How are you going to reach out? How are you going to take care of all that? Maybe it's even more basic, like taking care of yourself through your mental health and your emotional health. Maybe this is about those techniques. Well, maybe I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. Maybe I'm going to meditate. Maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm going to learn about those things and just start to integrate them more into my life. Tie those tactics and techniques together, because that's what's really, really going to help you thrive. Once you pull all that together, once you know your North Star and what those next right steps is, you can start to get back to this place of learning that when you take a step, it's on the right path. And you're not hedging your bets around trying to put that foot when you step down on as many paths as possible. It's just the one path. Who are you being? And when your foot drops, you can trust yourself that you've put your foot down on the right path because it's the path your foot's on. So that's kind of where I'm at with how I help people and what I'm doing along with Peeled Back. Using the live cast is going to be a big continued part of that. In the very near future, we're going to be taking this into a place of the audio platforms. This is something that I haven't done before. I'm going to be renaming this as Lifting the Fog to tie back into the original journey of what all this was to help people see the bumps and the triumphs and not just leave clues behind, but to leave these as billboards. And now we're going to be reshaping that into leaving these as lighthouses to help you get through the fog to see, oh, do I need to stop? Do I need to slow down and get back connected? Hey, Raul, how are you? Let's see, Raul, what role do you think people's past experiences limits their abilities to design the life they desired? Oh, man, that's a great one. I want to get to that, but I see Mariano. Love the new name. Thanks, brother. I'll definitely be reaching out to you very shortly. Mariano Gila is the reason for the new branding behind the live cast and the intros and the outros that I've had for the past 20-ish, 25 episodes. If you need any help on telling a story and using video and video editing, definitely go check out Mariano Gila. He's on LinkedIn. He's a great guy, somebody I have a conversation with on a regular basis, and we are much overdue. So thanks for being here today, brother. Back to Raul's question. What role do you think people's past experiences limit their abilities to design the life they desire? Oh, I feel like this is a great question, Raul. A ton. It's everything. It's 100% everything. I think I'll speak from my own experiences. Somebody that's gone through a lot of training and support over the last 2+ years as I've worked through getting my certification. I talk about the path of that. It wasn't therapy, and I have been seeing a counselor for a long time as well, but the process was therapeutic. And what was therapeutic about it is realizing when I was slowing down and going, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And using great coaches like Raul. Raul has been one of my coaches over the past 3 years. And exploring what is actually happening. A lot of it tied back down to my younger self and seeing how that younger self set up a life in a way that was trying to protect him. And kind of like disconnecting from that, but just knowing that these are the actions I'm taking, these are the feet, and not being connected to the feelings that are underneath my neck, in my body, and what they were doing, and just going with it because that's what I trained myself to do in those younger parts of my life. And anytime I would set up goals to get somewhere, just like I talked at the earlier part about this, it's like I was a great starter. And I think that came from I didn't want to finish anything because then I'd have to be judged. And if I was judged, I'd feel really bad about myself. And there was like a shame spiral that would go into that, and that kind of like spewed out everywhere else. And after working with numerous clients, it's the same thing. It's like they're ambitious. They have everything in the world going for them. And yet these saboteurs within ourselves would show up and whisper to them. Whisper these things that they heard as a much younger person. Are you going to be loved if you do this? Well, that's a message some would want to avoid. Do you think you're good enough? That was one that used to chase me around, Raul. So yeah, I think the role is an important role, is to start to go back and look at that. Because so many, well, I'll say myself and the clients I've worked with, we've been running blind from those paths. Maybe not being able to remember the original starting point, but we've been running away from that feeling because that was a dangerous thing. We don't want to feel like this, so we push that away. Working with clients, kind of hold them there. And so they can feel it, they can get used to it, they can understand it better. So when it shows up, going, what's actually behind this feeling? I think to add to that, Raul, is like one of the things I've learned is that feelings are a messenger, and there's always a sender that's behind that feeling. The emotion, the feeling is meant to get your attention. And so if you give it the attention, you turn and lean into it, you can actually figure out what is within you that's sending that. That's a great question, Raul. Thank you so much for asking it. Mariano, always happy to help. Thanks, brother. Do you have any questions as well, Mariano, you'd like to hear answered? Definitely drop them down in the comments like Raul and Mariano have done. Not hearing any. Well, I guess we'll continue on. Here's a question that I enjoy asking my clients. Imagine all your responsibilities and obligations vanished overnight. What would you miss doing? What would you choose to add back to your life? If everything vanished and I had to start from scratch again, what would I miss doing? I'd miss doing this show. I put it on pause for a little bit as I was finishing my certification and trying to figure out, still working through what I thought was the initial question of who do I want to be, or what do I want to do, and realizing in the past 7 months it's who do I want to be. What would I miss doing? I would miss doing this. I would miss working with my clients. I would miss the laughter and the ahas. What would I add back? Oh, I would add back, as weird as it is, I kind of like cleaning up my main floor. That's my go-to chore of our home, because it's nice to walk in to have that space. I would definitely add that. I would add back going to the gym. I've been very disciplined on my exercise, and it has showed up in not just my body, but in the way that I've been able to help build the capacity to feel and understand my body better. What would I add back to my life? Make sure to have more consistent time with the people I love, because that's who I want to be. I want to and focus on who I want to be versus what I want to do. Who? That's somebody who's bold, who's kind, compassionate, curious, and playful. I like those pieces of me when they show up, so I'd find the ways to make that happen. We're kind of coming up to the end of my 30 minutes here today. Anybody else watching, you're very welcome to add some questions. Going once, going twice. All right, well, I'm going to end with two things. So at the end of every show, I ask my guests one question, but I've got one additional one that I want to share, an inquiry for the rest of you who are watching maybe today and listening along. It's what can I do today to improve by 1%? What can you do to give yourself the permission to take little steps instead of guilting yourself into trying to taking huge leaps? What if you just trusted yourself a little bit more? What if today you were improving by 1%, becoming the person you trust the most? That's my wish for all of you. And my last question I always ask every guest before we sign off is, what is your personal definition of trusting yourself? It sounds simple, but it's like doing what you commit to. And the part that I've learned to become the person I trust myself is saying no to things. Saying, no, I don't have time for that. No, I don't, that's not the right fit. No, I don't believe I can keep that commitment if I say yes. By saying no, it allows me to guard and protect the yeses I've already committed to and the yeses that I'm going to give. And then it makes those yeses, plug your ears of your kids, fuck yeses and fuck no's. And it's just, that's for me where my trust is. I trust in my ability to identify a no, trust in my body when I know it's a no, and not say yes just because I'm trying to make somebody else feel good or avoid a conflict or avoid something. My personal definition of trust is not avoiding the no's. Well, for everybody that was watching around, thanks to Ryan, Raul, and Mariano for engaging today. And for the rest of you, I hope you have an incredible rest of your day and that you can take away a few things from here today. Start trusting yourself, finding out what that means for you, and play around with what's that one thing today you can do to improve by 1%. Thank you very much to everybody, and we will talk to you on episode 108 with Corey Oman Brown.